The morning sun climbed lazily over the sweeping prairies of Redstone Valley, casting long golden beams across the vast ranches that dotted the land. And Jedediah Cole, known to most simply as Jed, had already been riding for hours by the time the rest of the valley woke. He was a man carved out of dust, leather, and quiet storms, the kind of rancher whose word carried weight without ever being raised above a whisper. But on this particular morning, his ride took a turn so unexpected that even decades later, he would still say it felt like fate had grabbed him by the collar. As he guided his horse toward the main barn, he noticed the door hanging slightly open, swaying as if pushed by a breath of unseen wind. Jed wasn't a man who ignored small details. Out here, small things often meant life or death. He slid off his saddle, boots crunching over the dry ground, and approached with his hand resting on his belt. But the moment he stepped into the barn's shadow, the breath caught in his chest. There, lying in the middle of the hay-strewn floor, was a young woman dressed in torn white fabric, her bare legs marked by scratches, dust, and something that looked disturbingly like swelling. She wasn't unconscious, no, her eyes were open, wild with pain. But what startled Jed even more was the fear in her voice as she gasped, I can't close my legs." The words trembled through the quiet barn like a cry from another world. Jed rushed to her side, dropping to one knee, but he didn't touch her at first. He simply looked her over the way a seasoned rancher did, checking for snake bites, injuries, anything that would explain her agony. "Easy now," he murmured, voice steady as oak. "You're safe, ma'am. Tell me what's hurtin'." Her breath hitched as she tried to lift herself, but Jed gently, respectfully set a hand near her shoulder to ease her down. That's when he noticed it, something pressing against her inner thigh, something swollen, something wrong in a way he had never seen before on man or woman. But it wasn't something indecent. It wasn't something shameful. It was something impossible. A shape under the skin, like a hard knot traveling upward instead of down, almost as if something inside her leg was moving. Jed felt the blood drain from his face. A moment later, her cry tore through the barn, raw and echoing. Jed reached down, not with hesitation, but with the instinct of a man who had delivered calves, treated injured horses, and patched up wounded ranch hands for decades. His fingertips brushed the swollen area near her thigh, just enough pressure to understand, and that's when it happened. Something twitched beneath her skin. Something alive. Jed jerked his hand back, eyes wide. "What in God's name?" he whispered. The woman whimpered, tears streaking through the dust on her cheeks. "Please help me. It's been growing since yesterday. I collapsed trying to get here. I thought someone here would know what to do." Jed steadied himself, pushing down the chill racing through him. Whatever this was, it wasn't a wound. This was something far stranger. He shifted, examining her leg again, and suddenly the truth began piecing itself together in his mind. Not a creature, not a sickness, not anything natural. It was a device, metal, smooth, wedged beneath her skin like it had been forced there, deliberately. And judging by the small circular marks on her ankle and calf, someone had injected it or implanted it before she escaped. Jed exhaled slow, anger simmering deep. This wasn't an accident. This woman hadn't stumbled onto his ranch by chance. Someone had done this to her. Someone with tools and cruelty and a reason. And whoever they were, they weren't far. He scanned the barn, his instincts prickling, tracks, fresh prints near the door. A horse missing its rider, a boot imprint too small to belong to a rancher. The woman's breathing slowed, but her voice was faint. "They're coming," she whispered. "They want this thing back." Jed didn't know who they were, but he knew one thing for certain. No one who brands a human, being with metal under the skin, deserved to get their prize back. He stood, straightening with the fire of a man who had sworn to protect whomever fate placed in his path. "Not while I'm breathing," he muttered. The ranch, once peaceful under the morning sun, suddenly felt like the stage of a much larger, darker story, and Jed Cole had just stepped into the first chapter of it. As he lifted the woman gently into his arms and carried her towards safety, he didn't yet know the truth, that what he had found embedded in her leg wasn't just metal. It was a message, a map, and a warning that the quiet life he thought he lived was already over. Something unbelievable had been set in motion, and everything, Redstone Valley, his ranch, even his own past, was about to be dragged into the storm. Jed Cole carried the injured woman into the old ranch house with the steady determination of a man who had faced rattlesnakes, horse stampedes, and cattle thieves. But nothing he had ever lived through had prepared him for the strange, metallic shape he had felt beneath her skin. He laid her gently on the wooden table, brushing aside tools and old maps as he fetched a lantern for better light. And when the flickering glow fell across her leg, the swelling looked even stranger, smooth, unnatural, almost polished beneath the surface, like metal forged by hands with knowledge far beyond ranch life. The woman tried to speak, but her voice trembled like a candle in the wind. "My name, Maren," she whispered, and Jed nodded as he cleaned the dirt from her skin with a damp cloth. Seeing the puncture marks clearly now, tiny, circular burns like branding irons had kissed her flesh. "Who did this to you?" he asked, voice low and calm, though his blood simmered with fury. Maren swallowed hard, as if the truth itself was heavier than her pain. "Men, not from town. They took me while I was traveling. Said I had something they needed, something they wanted me to carry." Jed paused, eyes narrowing. "You mean they put this thing in your leg?" She nodded weakly, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "It wasn't just an object. They said it was a key, that my blood would hide it, that no one could find it without tearing it out." Jed felt a cold, iron weight drop into his stomach as he leaned closer, inspecting the swelling. A key, not the kind that opens doors of wood and iron. No, this felt like something meant to unlock secrets buried far beneath the surface of this land. Suddenly, a rapid thumping of hooves echoed in the distance. Jed stiffened, riders, several of them, coming fast. He blew out the lantern, plunging the room into dim twilight, and quietly pushed the table against the far wall, shielding Maren from view. "Stay still," he whispered, grabbing his rifle from the corner. Maren's breathing quickened. "They'll kill you if they find you helping me," she said. But Jed only adjusted the rifle's chamber with a soft, mechanical click. "Let 'em try," he muttered. The hooves stopped right outside the ranch house. Shadows loomed through the window, 3, maybe 4 men dismounting. Jed moved silently to the doorway, heart steady as a metronome. The door swung open with a violent kick, wooden splinters spraying across the floor as a tall man stepped inside, his face half hidden behind a scarf, eyes cold and calculated. "We're looking for a girl," the stranger said. "Young, dark hair, white dress. Seen her?" Jed's jaw tightened as he stepped forward, meeting the stranger's gaze with the kind of stare that could stop a rattler mid-strike. "Ain't seen anyone but my horse," he said calmly. The stranger smirked beneath his scarf. "Funny, her tracks lead straight here." Jed didn't blink. Tracks can fool a man who don't know how to read 'em. A tense silence filled the air, thick as a coiled rope. Then the stranger's hand drifted toward his holster, but before he could draw, Jed cocked his rifle. With a sharp metallic snap that echoed like thunder in the small cabin. The standoff stretched into eternity, then one of the other riders burst through the door. "Boss!" he shouted. "The signal's going off, it's moving." Jed froze. Maren, hidden under the table, stiffened too. The stranger's head snapped toward the man. "What do you mean it's moving?" "I mean, whatever you put in her, it's active. The device is heating. We need it now before it transmits." "Transmits?" Jed's stomach tied into a knot. Whatever had been put inside Maren, it wasn't just a key. It was sending a message, and the message was already on its way. The leader turned back toward Jed, suspicion blazing in his eyes. "You sure you haven't seen her?" Jed knew he was outnumbered, 4 guns to his 1, but he also knew one thing. These men couldn't leave this ranch with the truth. "Last chance, rancher," the stranger hissed. Jed stepped aside from the doorway, revealing nothing but empty space. He smiled. "Reckon you boys ought to look around." The men surged past him, spreading through the house, searching every corner. Jed moved fast. He slid to the table, lifted Maren carefully and whispered, "We're getting you out of here. She winced in pain, clutching his shirt, the warmth of her fever burning through him. The device. It's not just a key. It's calling to something. Jed didn't wait for the rest. He carried her out the back door and toward his horse, muscles straining, heart pounding as gunshots exploded behind them. The men had realized the truth. "Go!" Maren cried as Jed lifted her onto the horse and swung into the saddle behind her. Bullets tore through the air as Jed kicked the horse into a furious gallop, dust exploding beneath its hooves. They raced toward the canyon, wind slashing across their faces, the ranch shrinking behind them. The riders mounted fast, chasing like wolves. Maren clung to Jed, breath ragged. If the signal reaches the other device, everything changes. Jed, they want to open something buried out here, something ancient. Jed's arms tightened around her as they neared the canyon ridge. "Then we stop 'em," he said, voice like steel. But Maren shook her head. "You don't understand. The place it leads to, it's not just old. It's forbidden." Thunder rolled across the sky, though no storm clouds had formed. Jed looked back at the riders, still coming, closer than before, and forward toward the narrow canyon path. One wrong turn and they'd fall to their deaths. But stopping wasn't an option. "Hold on!" Jed shouted. Maren grabbed the saddle horn with trembling fingers as they plunged into the canyon's shadow, chased by enemies and destiny alike. Behind them, the signal pulsed again beneath her skin, brighter, hotter, calling something Jed did not yet understand. Something waking beneath Redstone Valley, something that had been buried for a reason. And whatever it was, they were headed straight toward it,